To bring in Thomas Warrick. He joins me from the U.S. Capitol. He's a senior fellow at the Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security's Forward Defense Practice at the Atlantic Council. He's also a former Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Good to have you on TRT World. So this is really a landmark decision that we've seen from the Supreme Court. What's your reaction to this ruling?
Well, it's certainly a very complicated one, and because it doesn't give very much guidance to the lower court on what unofficial acts are and how you tell the one from the other, it would surprise a lot of people to understand that running for president may not be an official act of the president. But what this is going to do, as your correspondent just says, it will require the lower courts to hold lengthy factual and legal hearings to try to understand more about what Trump did in the conduct that it is alleged he did that was criminal. This actually could lead to a mini trial in which the evidence would become public. And so there is actually the possibility for some kind of proceeding to be held before the U.S. election. But it also basically assures that Trump's case, even if he is convicted ultimately, will come back to the Supreme Court, and that there therefore is a long time before this case will ever be heard, if at all. It is going to encourage both former President Trump's supporters, but also his opponents, because they're going to use this case as an even stronger argument why Trump must never be allowed near the reins of power again. So a lot of high stakes yet to come.
Yeah, a lot of high stakes, and many will be wondering the difference between an official act and an unofficial act. Who's it up to decide what is official and what isn't? Is that down to the court again? It's the government. There are so many questions here.
Well, here we go again. Yes. So they will start in the district court with factual and legal hearings. It will then go up perhaps to the Court of Appeals. Normally, in a normal criminal case, you would wait until after the trial before hearing the appeal. But I'm sure President Trump's lawyers will insist there needs to be another early appeal. But that actually will be up to the intermediate courts to decide. These are very new and uncharted legal waters. The dissents in this case had it right. This is a truly unprecedented way of looking at immunity. And it's very hard to see how this does not come back to the Supreme Court at some point yet again, but probably after the November 5th election.
Thomas, how is this going to affect the next president, whoever is voted into power come November, Biden or Trump, and not just them, but also future U.S. presidents?
Well, and interestingly, it also applies to the current president. So I really seriously doubt Joe Biden would be tempted to abuse any of his powers. That's out of character for the man, given his history. But it certainly does apply even to him today. It would also serve to tie the hands of a future Trump administration in prosecuting President Biden if they wanted to try to do something like that. Many Americans today are wondering if it was a Democratic president who was before the Republican-appointed judges on the Supreme Court, would they be looking as leniently as Chief Justice Roberts did in his opinion today? I was actually a law school classmate of Chief Justice Roberts. This surprises many of us who know him well, because this really does strike at the heart of American constitutional law. And I think will go down in history as one of the most controversial opinions the Supreme Court has come down with in the last 100 years.
Yes, and this was a 6-3 ruling, I believe, and many saying that this really takes away the democracy of the United States, giving the president king-like powers. And then it makes one wonder, where does this leave the campaign season for these two men who are trying to become the next president? Biden, of course, trying to hold on to the presidency, Trump wanting to get it back. We've only got a few months left. How are U.S. voters now going to see this?
Well, the way American democracy now works, because of this thing called the Electoral College, there are actually only 6 states that will decide who the next president is. The outcome in all of the other states is essentially known in advance. But this certainly raises the stakes in the election. The idea that the president will enjoy much greater powers, including the power to go after his political opponents, is going to energize supporters of both candidates. And I actually think that on balance, this opinion is likely to strengthen the Democrats more than the Republicans, but because it really does make it clear, based on what Trump has said he will do if reelected, that American democracy is very much on the ballot. If President Biden is reelected, you can expect things to go back to some kind of normal, but that would certainly not be the case if President Trump were reelected.
Well, this certainly is going to be a very interesting election. Thomas Warrick in the U.S. Capitol, great to get your analysis. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.